Just yesterday, I logged in to the D.C. exchange, where members of Congress must go, and got an error. We do not have either the front end or the back end, not just in the federal system, but in systems that feed into it, in fact, ready.
So those last comments from the House Oversight Committee Chairman Darrell Issa, Republican out of California, who's with me now. And, sir, thank you for your time today. That hearing is over. What do you think you learned today?
Bill, one of the things we learned is even when the Obamacare website starts to work and work properly, we're still going to have the market distortions. Both Republican and Democratically selected witnesses made it very clear that market distortions through the growing government intervention are inevitable. Now, one side thinks that it's worthwhile. Some of my colleagues on the Democratic side whispered when we were complaining about the growth in the cost of health care beyond inflation. They started talking single payer. Ultimately, that's a big part of what I think we're starting to see is this failure and the significant increase in the cost, whether subsidized or unsubsidized, is leading toward a justification for yet another solution. And the question is, will it be one toward free market, transparency, and hopefully lower costs through consumer choice, or is it going to be toward a single-payer plan, something that many Democrats wanted and took this because they could get it?
And what was your sense of the flow of that conversation?
Well, it's very clear that on the left of the Democratic Party, they want single payer. When you talk about 18% going to 21% of all money spent in America being spent on health care because there are no sensible controls that are market driven to help lower the cost of health care and drive up the capability for all of us to afford it, their answer is, well, we'll just have more government. And ultimately, in testimony, what we heard was CMS, the group that supports Medicare and Medicaid, they call it a success, but ultimately it's been cost shifting to the private sector. And what we saw today was the Affordable Care Act, by design, is cost shifting to various people who are paying a larger share of the bill in order to subsidize others. And that's where the public is seeing this. They're seeing that whether subsidized or unsubsidized, the gross rate goes up. And if you're paying the full load, you're paying more because Affordable Care Act is subsidizing others and still losing money.
All right, now keep it basic for me, okay? But this hearing was about the limitations of big government. Now what has Obamacare shown you so far about the limits of that government?
That you can spend money, you can mandate things, but you can't control the cost. And so that's really what's happened is this very expensive failed website is the tip of the iceberg of a system that is, in fact, broken. Healthcare in America, from a cost basis, has been broken, but the Affordable Care Act, injecting more government spending and government mandates, is actually driving the price up. That's not what the president promised. It's not what he intended, but it's what's happening. And, of course, this is what the American people care about. They called this act the Affordable Care Act because it was about, quote, affordability. Now that it's proving to be more expensive, basically because of many of the provisions, Americans are beginning to question, can government mandate health care? They can spend money, but can they mandate health care be affordable? And the clear answer today is the intervention by the federal government in mandates and rules and, of course, their money distort the market. In this case, distort the market toward less affordable.
Okay, I understand the point on that because it messes with the market. Now, two specific questions. Was your hearing just contained to the website, or are you looking into 2014 now?
We're looking beyond the website. The fact is, eventually they'll get this website working at a cost of probably over $1 billion. But the failure will be, in fact...
Sorry, $1 billion in the end? You believe that?
Absolutely. They were at 641. They're probably closer to 700 million now. And they're going to spend a lot more doing the hard parts on the back end. So there's no question this site is going to get more and more expensive. Perhaps they'll try to push back some of the costs to the vendors who failed so miserably. But there's no question this is going to be extremely expensive. The real question, though, is does the Affordable Care Act work, or is it a market attempt, or sorry, a non-market attempt by government that is already showing why it's failing? And that's what we saw by Republican and Democratic witnesses, that in fact this market is not working because government cannot mandate lower prices.
I'm short on time. One final question. Was it proven today that an internet company offered to build a website for free and the government passed on that? Is that true? Did that happen?
It was stated under oath that it was. Nobody argued with it, so quite frankly, that's less than full evidence, but none of our witnesses argued that, and in fact, several of our witnesses said, look, at a minimum, this individuals or this company should have been allowed to consult to help do a better job. If somebody says I could build it for free, they certainly could have taught us how to build it for less.
But based on federal government rules, could the government have done that?
You know, the fact is the government can accept individuals or groups providing services unfunded, for example, consulting. And that's exactly what some of these individuals coming out of Silicon Valley have done to try to get this website going. They've come in and volunteered. So the idea that you can't take free advice is absurd. Of course you can. And in this case, they failed to take the kind of advice that would have prevented this website from being a colossal failure.
Darrell Issa, thank you for your time. From the Hill this afternoon.
Most welcome, Bill.
All right.